The end of a big week, and the champagne ain't flowing lightly. Our team's just won a contract for a web campaign for Nike. We can't believe our luck. And thank fuck, we'll now be branding for a company with a little bit more PR understanding. Our last client, right, Hyatt, in the days of the slave trade, made nigger collars. And their marketing's hardly evolved since then, though now they're making bigger dollars manufacturing the manacles they use on prisoners in Guantanamo, a big brand seller, advertised with the strapline as used on the famous Nelson Mandela. Now, of course, we can't afford to select our clients on an ethical basis, but it feels better to be working for a company with more of a reputable status. I mean, Nike might have used sweatshops in the 90s, but all that public hostilities made them brand leaders in corporate social responsibility. TN works the press that molds the souls of the new Air Pegasus, unaware that winged horse is related to his own culture's Kirin, a mythical beast that brings prosperity and serenity. And if he was, he might laugh at the irony as he ends another 70-hour week with little more than $10 to take home to his family, whilst the man who owns the factory falsifies the timesheets so there's no sweatshop conditions for the English to see. Anyway, Mike, our team leader, takes us out for a slap-up feed to celebrate. Gets a table at this pretentious don't-you-know-who-I-am celebrity chef place where the food's all balanced high on tiny plates with sauce drizzled round the edge. But it don't satisfy me because there's not enough food and I don't do veg. After all the fancy food and fine wine, we decide it's time to get serious. So we head down to Century and start knocking back caipirinhas. But all this Latin spirit we're drinking makes us start thinking about some Bolivian white for the nose. So we leave spent glasses of limes and head off to find some 9 from a guy Mike knows. Once we've got the drugs we need for the party buzz, we take them in the club and start looking for Bacardi sipping girls who went having sex, not making love. But we're a little bit dishevelled by now, not on a level with these highbrow ladies, more concerned with their cuticles. So Mike decides we'll get our fix from some girls who turn tricks after one last sniff in the cubicles. Cicerone treads wearily upon the sludge of dilute sulfuric acid and coca leaves. Sleepily dreams of growing coffee, but the cartel's reign of fear ensure Mama Coca's the only cash cow allowed to grow around here. And he knows the paste between his toes will become a powder that flows around the world, making mules out of young girls sat on flights, bellies swollen with pellets of coke that they pray won't get broken, that gets cooked into rocks, sold on blocks where junkies and whores are exchanged for daughters and mothers, and bullet-ridden corpses swapped for fathers and brothers who, like him, just wanted to escape. But Cicerone knows that's just all in a day's dream for a link in the chain of cocaine slavery. I've never done this before, but I ain't going to admit it. I'd never live it down with Mike and the lads now if I shit it, but as we approach the sauna, images of my ex-wife and daughter, like paintings of Catholic saints, bring pinpricks of shame into the dark corners of my brain. But as I close the door behind me, I close another one in my mind, and I find myself looking at this pale, pretty woman, tired, young. Doesn't speak, but I thought it was true what they said about the quiet ones. I tried to give her the tongue, but she's all fingers and thumbs as if she's never done this before, and she looks a bit distressed. And I don't know if it's that or the coke, but I'm still not hard by the time I'm undressed. So I just lie on the bed and tell her to give my back a rub, which she does. But she's so light. It's so delicate, her touch. It reminds me of my daughter playing typewriter on my back to wake me up. And I roll over, and there's wetness on my cheeks, and she's crying too, and neither of us speak. We just look at each other weeping like two kids who chased a promise far from what they were seeking. I get up, get dressed, give her all my cash and go to leave, but she looks at it like it's fucking paper. and at me like she'd gouge out her heart to be released. So I go, and when I get home, I anonymously call the police. The advert said they wanted catering and cleaning staff to work overseas. Edita told them she could start immediately, but when she landed in this country, she was handed over for a sum of money to a man who beat and raped her till she was passive, then made her have sex with strangers to pay off the price of her passage. When the police raided the brothel, she thought she'd get beaten again, but she was merely detained, then deported like baggage, praying the gang by whom she was trafficked wouldn't be waiting for her at reclaim. Meanwhile, a man lay in bed at home on his own with an image of an aviary full of caged birds on replay, wondering in a civilized country how slavery still occurs these days. Thanks. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. It's good practice when you're doing a poetry set to always start off with something quite light, short and kind of light-hearted. So this next one's a lot longer and quite dark. No, it's all right. It's not. Hello. That piece was called "For the English to See," which is a phrase in Brazil. I can't remember the Portuguese for it, but it's a phrase that came about because once the British abolished slavery, they kind of suddenly realised that was a good idea and sort of started suggesting other countries do it. And in Brazil, the practice continued for a long time, but they pretended that there was no slavery there. And it was for the English to see, and that's now a phrase in Portuguese, which basically just means kind of carrying on doing something while you're pretending you're not doing it. Much like some forms of slavery still continue today. So that's why I wrote that. Anyway, hi. Nice to be here. I am in Germany, aren't I? I just wanted to check, because last night I was in Austria, and I started telling all of this Salzburg audience how lovely it was to be in Germany. Didn't go down so well. So if I am in Germany, I'd like to say how lovely it is to be in Germany. Thank you for having me. I'm gonna come back after the break and do another poem. I'm just gonna do one more for you now, and this is from my book, which is a good a point as any, I suppose, to mention that I've got a book. You can buy it off me if you want to. Please do, because they're really heavy, and I sort of only just scraped put into the baggage weight restriction on the way out here, so I wanted to take some clothes home and stuff, and some bratwurst or something. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good sales pitch, am I? If you want to buy a book, speak to me after the show. I've got CDs as well. It's lovely. So this poem is about paper, so I always pretend to read it off paper, even though I know it now. It's just a subtle form of product placement, really. And I try to use recycled paper where I can, being the good hippie that I am. And so it's kind of like, it's born out of kind of staring at a blank page, which is something that you'll probably be used to if you're a poet or have ever tried writing anything, just kind of wishing that the paper would speak to you. And that's where this came from. It's called On Paper. I wasn't always this, a crisp, white, straight edge from a box of 500, waiting patiently for my blank face to be laden with lines which barely make sense, and my bottom to be numbered. I slumbered as a seed, spent 50 years growing to a tree before being lumbered, hacked and packed. But that previous incarnation is just a tiny part of me. The timber plantation, a mere fibre of my memory. I've been weaved from pieces of paper more numerous than the leaves of the trees they were made from. more multitudinous than the stories and sums written on their faces, created to make people believe the imaginary status of the places they come from. I'm the glossy magazine the teenage girl threw in the bin along with her dream of ever being that fucking thin. I'm the two stuck together skins binned with all the others by the little boy teaching himself to make those long cone-shaped cigs smoked by his older brothers. I'm the torn up letter in which she explained why she had to go or wouldn't stay. He couldn't tell the difference. And one of many bunched fist tissues which littered the flat as he grew accustomed to the company of his right hand. I'm the stamp on the envelope sent to the home of an old lady living alone from a faraway cousin who'd just discovered a distant leaf on a branch of his family tree, but which arrived too late for her to see as she withered in the autumn of her life and fell. I'm the paper bell that tolled for the trader who neglected to invest in gold as the market crashed. His fortune dashed against the rocks of his stock portfolio, now shredded, along with the unfettered free market beliefs to which he was wedded. I'm the last fiver, sole survivor from the dole docket, unable to keep my promise to pay the bearer the sum since I swum to my death in the wash when she forgot to check her pockets. I'm the photo in the locket, the last memory of a painful legacy from which he was finally free when he accidentally dropped it. I'm the torn up sheet from the rhyme book of the wannabe MC who gave up spitting consciously because she believed gangster paper chasing was the only way to succeed. I'm the paper bag the lad was told he couldn't punch his way out of by his dad as he beat him, and the train ticket that was all it took to be punched to eventually defeat him. I'm the wood chip they strip from the walls, hoping to paper over the cracks. I'm the final reminder for your gas, phone, electric and your council tax. I'm your kids' detention slips. I'm the last piece of bog roll when you've got the shits. I'm Enron's share certificates. I'm yesterday's obituaries. I'm the fragmented dreams of 1,000 trees that aspire to great heights imagined through photosyntheses. I am light made solid. I'm the register of all your lies, from the most angelic to the most squalid. But I have no voice. I have no choice but to rely on your hard work to make heard all my hidden songs. So please make sure your words are worth the paper that they're written on. Thank you very much. See you later.